My name is Hitesh Patel, and today I'm going to give a quick demo of Beacon, a new software as a service application that helps you gain visibility, analytics, and insights into your application data path across F5 and ecosystem solutions. One of the consistent things we've heard from customers is they need more visibility into their applications and, more importantly, their application data paths. Beyond just day-to-day operational visibility, we've also found that this lack of visibility directly impacts your ability to solve challenges around multi-cloud deployments, infrastructure lock-in, security and policy compliance, and tool sprawl. Beacon helps to solve your visibility challenges by turning your existing deployed F5 hardware, software, and instances into agents that provide a deep level of layer 437 telemetry. Think about it this way. You already have an F5 instance deployed in your application data path, doing things like layer 7 traffic routing, decryption, and security. Beacon integrates and streams telemetry from these existing instances to give you application-level visibility, analytics, and insights. In today's demo, we'll show 3 key use cases that help solve your visibility challenges. First, we'll talk about application topology, discovery, and telemetry. Second, we'll go into monitoring the user experience, performance, and health of your applications in a holistic manner. And third, we'll talk about actionable insights that provide anomaly detection and assist with root cause analysis. While we're going through the demos, we'll also be sure to highlight the open, extensible, and API-first nature of the Beacon platform. This attribute helps us readily integrate with DevOps and SRE methodologies and with your continuous integration, delivery, and deployment pipelines. So let's go to our first use case and see how Beacon represents, discovers, and visualizes your applications, their topology, dependencies, and associated telemetry. We'll start by creating a simple application. I'm just going to fill in a name here, My Simple App. And I'm going to add a metadata tag here. We'll say the location of this app is in, let's say, Seattle. And we're going to attach a measurement to this. In this case, a monitor that's going to monitor the user experience of this application from an external perspective. We'll click Save, and we'll see we've created our application there. To that, we're going to add 2 nodes. We'll start with the first node, which is our Big IP virtual server. And again, we'll go in here and we'll attach that virtual server that's been previously discovered to this application. We'll click Save there, and you can see we've got a single node. We'll go ahead and create one more node here, and this is going to be an F5 Cloud Services GSLB instance. And again, with our integrations with the F5 product portfolio family, we can go in and actually pull in information from that GSLB instance into Beacon automatically. All right, so we've got this simple application created. Now, you can certainly do this through the graphical user interface, but we actually have an API for this, and this is one of the key things about Beacon. What you see in the GUI is also an API, and you can go in and create this application through the API. The important thing here, though, is how you maintain this application, because we know that applications are going to change over time. And so what we actually like for our customers to do is integrate via the APIs, integrate into their automation pipelines, into the tools that they're using outside of Beacon, using this declarative simple API. And that way your application topologies stay up to date. When we discover applications, this is also how we do it. We simply go in, look for the information within your environment, and then put that into an API call towards Beacon to either update or create an application. So we'll go ahead and save this application, and we're going to let that collect some data. You can see it's been created here, and we'll let it go for a little bit. In the meantime, what we'll do here is we will look at an application that we already created. And you can see here, this application is a little more complicated. It's got a lot more components, but you can see this is probably more representative of what an application looks like in your environment. At the top here, you can see the application map. And within that application map, you can see the various health scores for all the components that we have in the application topology. This health scoring is pretty dynamic. We can go in and set different settings for each of the components so that we can bubble up the status of that component. We can go in and say account for things like clusters database clusters, or maybe even a cluster of big IPs, and then only roll up a critical or a warning health status when part of the cluster fails or all of the cluster fails. And in addition, through this view, you can also see some of the information here that we've already gathered for this applications. We'll go into that in detail here in a second. And lastly, we'll look at our application landscape view from a geographic perspective. If you remember, when I created my application, I actually put a location of Seattle in there. For the mobile application we were looking at, that was actually set to London. You can see here it's represented here. This is a quick way for you to see how your applications are doing from this geographical perspective. And then you can drill in and see, okay, in London, we've got this application deployed. And if I click into that, again, we see our app detail view here on the right. Now that we know the structure of our applications, let's take a little deeper dive and show how Beacon fuses information from multiple sources to provide you data on the user experience, health, and performance of your applications. We're looking here again at the mobile application we created. And if I scroll down here, you can start to see some of the information that I talked about. First, we'll see the health history and more specifically the uptime of this application over the last week here. We can change this granularity and you can pull up things like what did it look like for the last month? And we'll see here we've definitely had some issues with this application. This information is reported up from the application map here at the top and from the health score rollups. And as we go down, you're also starting to see some information from our monitors. The app latency metrics here that you see are actually from those monitors that we attach to this application. And they're correlated with what we're seeing from each of the components in the application topology. You can see here that we're actually seeing an issue. For this application, you're seeing this periodic spikes. And I've zoomed in to the graph to show this. If we go down, we can actually see a breakdown of that. And these orange bars you'll see show that the server processing time for this application seems to have an issue. We can see that because it's periodic. It's not actually happening all the time, but you see these periodic spikes that are happening on a regular occurrence. And that gives us a clue that there's something going on in the back end of this application. As you continue to scroll down, you start to see more granular information. Things like the actual events associated with the health scores and your properties down at the bottom of the application description. We'll actually go back now and look at our application that we created. That was My Simple App. And if you remember, we just created this actually a couple minutes ago. Here you can see that we're already starting to collect some data. It's not a lot, obviously. We haven't seen much since we're just now created this application. But you can see here we've already started to monitor the health history. The other thing you see here is I attached an existing monitor to this application. So let's say you already had a monitor created. It was used by other applications. We can actually pull that data in and present it here along with this application. And this will be useful if you say have a single front end to your applications or a single URL that then splits off into multiple areas in your environment. You're still going to be able to pull in that all up information for that application. Now, the important thing here is, especially for new applications, you can actually import your existing data. So if you have data from third-party solutions, or if you have data within your own systems, things that you've already been tracking, we make that pretty easy to import. You can use our API to do that. You just format the data in the format we need, and then you take that, put it into our metrics ingestion API, and we can then pull in that information and show it as part of this view, making it easier to actually get a view into what's been happening in your applications, even though you just added them to Beacon. Now that Beacon is armed with information, we'll take a quick look at how Beacon Insights help fuse and analyze the mountains of telemetry you're receiving to streamline things like anomaly detection and assist in root cause analysis. You can see here again, we have our mobile app open. And what I've done here is we associated an insight to this application. You can see that represented in this table here. We've got two insights. One of them you saw previously, which is just monitoring the CPU of the big IP device. In this case, the severity is showing as blue here, which means it's informational. You can actually click on these items and you can go into the information. We'll do that in a second here. The other insight that I associated was our anomaly detection insight. And what it's found is that we have some issues in the backend latency. Previously, I showed in the graph how we looked at that information. We'll take a quick look here. I'll just zoom into the daily view And you can see here, as I zoom in, you can see those spikes showing up. And then the same thing happened here in our graph with the breakdown in terms of server processing, DNS lookup, things like that. You can see the orange bars here, what we were talking about previously. Well, what the Anomaly Insight does is it actually looks at that information and it starts to find these spikes. It's easy to see this information in a graph, but when you have a lot of this data, and if you think about it, if you have that over a lot of applications, it's going to be pretty hard to come in here and periodically check everything. And so what that insight is doing is looking at the data, analyzing it on your behalf, and then it bubbles up this information and tells you that it's seeing an issue. Now we can actually go in and look at this, and I'll click here. And now you can see the information that's actually associated with that insight. If you look here, we're looking at the server processing milliseconds, and then it's actually showing you the data that we found. And this is the same graph we saw before, but a different way of seeing that information, essentially doing the analysis for you and then presenting that information to you. The nice thing about insights within Beacon is they're another part of our open and extensible platform. We've created a number of pre-built insights for you, but you can also consume insights yourself by either developing ones that are specific to your environment or looking at our GitHub site and pulling in insights that others have created, maybe other users, our partners, other people that are just interested in analyzing this sort of data. So that was a quick run through of how Beacon can use the infrastructure you already have deployed in your environment to bring visibility of your application topologies, their user experience, health, and performance, and provide insights to help drive focused improvements in operations, your security posture, and cost efficiency of your applications.